A very warm welcome to everyone to this Managers Talk with the President of CEC European Managers, Ludger Ramme. My name is Jean-Philippe Steger. I'm Policy and Communication Officer at CEC European Managers, and I'm very pleased to welcome Ludger, who will leave us as President of CEC European Managers after 25 years. And in today's interview, we will talk about the achievements of CEC in the last years and the main political kind of demands that CEC European Managers has put forward during that time, and to give, of course, also a perspective into the future. So I would start, Ludger, with a question. You have been part of the executive committee of CEC European Managers since 1996 and president since 2015. Quite a long time. So in your view, what are the key achievements of CEC within that period?
Well, thank you, Jean-Philippe, for that question, and hello, everybody. Yes, I was elected in 1996. That's very, very long ago. It was in Copenhagen, and our organization was having its congress with representatives from maybe 10, 12 countries at that time. In the meantime, we have grown to more than 16 countries and more federations. So the first achievement that I can recall would be the growth. We have been growing. We have been extending our membership. We have been reaching out to new countries, to the southeastern countries, as they were candidate countries, and joining the European Union afterwards. Another achievement is that during the course of all these years, we have found our place in the European social dialogue. Because in the 90s, that wasn't given. The social dialogue was kind of brand new. It was an invention of the Jacques Delors Commission. They were giving away to legislation other than legislative acts of the European Parliament and the European Council, which at that time the Council was the main decision maker what concerns legislation. And the Delors Commission had this brilliant idea to copy what was existent on the national level already in many countries, that the social partners, the representatives of the employers and the employees, would negotiate their work relationship and their industrial relations. And that achievement was transposed on the European level. And in the beginning, it was just the big unions, the ETUC, representing the vast majority of all workers in Europe, negotiating for the workers' rights. And there was this Business Europe, the industrial federations from all the different European countries uniting in one. And so there were two social partners mainly, and a third one was at that time the CEP. This is the representatives of the public employers, like public servants and employers with public capital companies. Yes, so these three big partners, they were creating the first social dialogue on European level. We believe that given this brilliant idea to have a European social dialogue shaping the future of industrial relations by negotiation, that managers have to be there, and that they must be there. So we started a long campaign in the 90s. We were making papers, we were publishing press releases, we were seeing politicians from all parties in the European Parliament. We were speaking to national prime ministers. I remember that we had several meetings with Helmut Kohl, the famous German chancellor of that time, and he gave us the assurance that he supports the idea that also managers should be involved in the social dialogue. And I think he talked to Jacques Delors, and we had a European election coming up, like a European Parliament election. And then things started moving, and then there was this representation of the small and medium crafts companies, and they also didn't get an invitation to be there. So they tried to sue the social partners to invite them. So there was the European Court of Justice involved with a pledge from the craftsmen. So there was a lot of things going on, and finally the European Court decided, no, you cannot be using the court to get a ticket for the social dialogue, because social dialogue means that the partners that are talking to each other, that are negotiating, they have to accept each other. And so the only way to get into the social dialogue is by being accepted by the other social partners. So we as CEC, we thought about this, and then we said, well, we need to go both ways. We have to get the support from the leaders of Europe, the prime ministers from the national countries, the political parties, and so on. But at the same time, we have to do something ourselves. We just cannot just wait for others to do our job. And we were starting to talk a lot to the European trade unions. From 1996 to 1999, actually, in 3 years, we were able to convince the unions to accept us. And so we found an agreement in 1999. That agreement is still valid and still in work. And in this agreement, we said, yes, we as CEC, we are going to join the delegation of the ETUC. So we are part of the ETUC workers delegation, but we will be remaining an independent organization. So we are not a member of the ETUC, but we will join their delegation. And they said, okay, so we will do this like that. And we had a meeting, we signed a contract. We had a glass of champagne actually at that time. Very unusual, but Mr. Carvalho and Mr. Angelo, they were very stylish. And so we had this agreement. And from that on, we were part of the European social dialogue. And that for me is the biggest achievement of what I can witness, because from this point on, we were invited to all the high-level meetings of for instance, the tripartite social summits, the meetings of the employers and employees delegation in the social dialogue committee. So from there, we really got the information that we needed to inform our members, to provide service, and to be a player, a small player, but an important player.
The last 25 years were like mainly maybe shaped by the position of CEC as a European social partners. Now I would like to come a little bit more away from the position that CEC had towards the content or our demands that CEC is putting forward. So there were quite a lot of evolutions if we think about the top topics today about sustainability and gender equality. If you could maybe tell us what has changed since the 90s, also and in particular in European management with regards to these questions.
We are standing for high quality and good management, because when we are representing managers, we cannot only fight for their interests, we also have to build on the image of the managers. And the image of a manager is not always good, because, you know, in the media, there happen some scandals, and there are always black sheep in a big herd of white sheep. Managers have a very tough job. They are under a lot of pressure. Their companies want the best possible performance in terms of economic success. So the managers very often know quite well what is good management and how they should behave and what they could do for the community. But they are prevented because they are under a tremendous expectation to increase the profits. And that is sometimes a big, a big conflict inside the role of the manager. And I believe always that we as an organization of managers, we have to give some guidance for the people, for the managers themselves, so they can find a good way through these pressure, through the pressure, but also find a good path through, maybe call it mountains of challenges. And you can go a lot of different ways, but we have to give a guidance, like a role model, and we have to at least talk about the ideal manager. Of course, we know we can never reach this in one person, but we have to at least look for a way to come close as possible as to the ideal manager. So we have been starting while I was on the board. I mean, I had all the different functions. I was Deputy Secretary General, Secretary General, I was Treasurer, and finally I have been President for 6 years. So I was always involved in this question, and I really have to say that I'm very much interested in that because being a manager myself, I know this by heart, and I also see that if you talk about something that's heavy on you, that's the first step for relief. And I also could see that when we were putting on the subject of good management and good leadership, we got feedback. We got more interest in our social media. We had visitors to our congresses, which were exclusively interested to find out what is good management, how can we learn from different experiences. So we have a lot of different strengths and ideas that I always tried with my team to bring together, to mingle it and to see what we can learn from it. And lately, that has led to very interesting evolutions. We have started with ethics many, many years ago. So we wrote a code of conduct of ethics for a manager. We were talking about the important rules in a company, so the compliance. What can you do inside a company that is still inside the legal possibilities, but is maybe touching already some more specific, some more difficult topics. For example, if you do, if you deal or if you trade in Africa, the rules and customs in Africa are so different. If you go to Asia, you have a completely different mindset what concerns moral and ethics and keeping your face, for instance. So all of this are questions that a manager is involved with, sometimes more, sometimes less, but I sensed very early that the reputation of CEC could grow by touching on these topics.
You mentioned the role of good management and transformative leadership, so to say. But can you tell me or give me a definition of what you think makes actually concretely a good leader in practice?
If I'm supposed to do that with a few words, I would say, first of all, a leader has to be open for change, because our world is changing all the time, and it's changing faster and faster and faster. And the leader who wants to keep everything as it is, he will be outdated so quickly, he can't really be aware of it. So change must be embraced. So every morning you have to get out of bed and say, what can I change today? What can I do different? And it's so easy to get used to change. You just, you have a routine in your bathroom in the morning. Tomorrow morning you get up and you do your routine the other way around. You start with what you do last normally. And just by doing this, you open up your mind. You get loosened, you can loosen up, and you start to enjoy change. And this is what a leader needs to do. Because finally, he's asking the same thing from his team, from the people he works with. A second thought I have about good leadership is to have very big ears. You have to listen. You have to listen to the people that you're working with. Don't go into your office and start yelling at your team or start giving orders. You should go into your office and sit down and see and look and listen what's going on in your team, because your team can only be as good as it is free from sorrows that they bring from home, unsolved problems, and so on. So if there's something in the air, you can sense it, and you have to train your senses to see what is the state of mind of my team. Are they powerful this morning, or do they need maybe some motivation? Do they need some support? Maybe there must be a round of small talk first to open them up, and then you can address important topics that bring forward your company, bring forward your undertaking. But listening is the key for a modern and a good leader.
Thank you very much, Ludger. You mentioned that change is the norm and that leaders have to adapt to change. as we're speaking, we're facing a global pandemic. We're also facing an economic crisis and last but not least, the climate emergency. So against that background, how can managers ensure they stay ahead and innovative in these changes?
First of all, managers have to have a good and a very broad knowledge of things that are going on. So they shouldn't just focus on inside company issues. They have to have a clear idea of about what's going on in the community, what's going on in society in general, what's going on in politics, what's going on communal, on federal level, on national level, and then what's going on in the world in general. And from there, a manager must draw conclusions and must foresee options. How could the future be like? There's never one single future. There's always many, many different futures that finally could happen. Finally will happen only one, but the choice is not made yet. And that's why a manager's task is to have different alternatives available for his reactions and for his proactive movements of the company. That to me is very important.
Thank you, Ludger. And coming to our priority topic, at least for the last 3 years, which was sustainable leadership besides gender equality and digitalization, of course. I wanted to ask you how, in your perspective, CEC came up with this, with the topic of sustainable leadership, and why this topic is important for CEC and managers also in general.
Well, I'm the one to blame actually, because in 2017 there were these first movements for the climate emergency, and I was very much impressed by the activities of young people at the age of my own children. My children also were involved and very interested in what's going on. And then there was later there was Greta. I think that was 2018. Greta Thunberg from Sweden doing the strikes and creating students for future. And I said that, and I could clearly see that now the mainstream had understood what scientists had said for decades before. I mean, I can remember, I think it was in the end of the 60s, early 70s, when I was young. There was this Club of Rome talking about the load for the planet Earth was getting too big what concerns pollution, setting free of CO2, chemical waste, biological waste, overpopulation, injustice. Everything was on the table and nothing happened for decades. And my generation, and I include myself, and I feel guilty for this, we didn't get any real focused strategy going, which worked worldwide and could shift things so that there was a reaction to the threat that we are still facing. And we are now in a position that the mainstream, that the majority of all people in the world, especially the young people, they have understood we have to do something and we have to do it now. We cannot wait. And still there are so many people in the industry that are saying, yes, but look, without pharmaceutical industry, we would not be able to fight diseases. We have been able to increase the agricultural performance. We have industrialized agriculture. So look, many more people can live now from what we are producing. And that is so sad because it's short-sighted. It doesn't really think until the end. And I think that we are now all so much educated, we have to think until the very end, until the consequences. And we just cannot wait. We cannot afford to wait and leave a destroyed planet to our grandchildren. I'm not ready to do that. I have already a little granddaughter, and the next grandchild is on the way. So I'm a grandpa, and I have a responsibility as a grandpa to leave a planet to my grandchildren. So I thought that, what can I do? And I said, well, I have some achievements in my role as a representative of managers. So I have to use it, and I have to use it within the limits, of course, that I am backed by my organization, but I at least have to start a discussion on it. So I did this in 2017, and you were there, Jean-Philippe. We created this paper on a good leadership and sustainable leadership, and to my surprise and to my relief, there was a great acceptance of the topic in our organization. And there were many representatives from our membership organizations who said, yes, this is something that's interesting. We are standing behind this and we want to work on this topic. And I think that was the moment in 2018, probably, when sustainable leadership as a topic was born for the CEC. And we were ahead of the politics. We were ahead of the European Commission that came 1 year later, establishing the European Green Deal and starting programs also for social partners to be involved in sustainable development, I would call it. And we had this head on. We are the sustainable leaders, and we want to contribute because we can contribute. We are the bridge builders in the companies. We are the ones who are in the industry responsible for the production lines. And so if you are doing something, we are there to provide our knowledge and our input. And that's why we won this European Commission support, the financial support for our project, the Sustainable Leadership Project, which is a great success. We have never had so much interest for a project before, and we are in the middle of this project, and I'm really very satisfied that at the end of my my work for the CEC, and well, I'm going to continue to contribute, but my official work for the CEC is coming to an end, and it's a beautiful end. I'm really happy about it.
Thank you very much, Ludger. To close up our discussion, I would like to ask you a last question, since CEC is also an active supporter of the European integration process. Yeah, I would like to wish you maybe a bit use your imagination, but what would you like to wish for the future of Europe and in general, and also, of course, for the future of CEC European Managers? What are your wishes in this regard, or maybe your ideas also?
Mm-hmm. Well, I have so many wishes, but I will try to concentrate on the main wishes. My vision of Europe is that Europe finds its way in between these poles of China and the United States. I think we have a unique opportunity to find a third way, a third path, and give a role model for a more humane form of capitalism. And that is what I really wish to bring together. The strength of Europe is the diversity, our liberal attitude, our tolerance and acceptance of different views and angles. So that's my main concern, that the European social model can survive because of its qualities. But we have to do a lot for that. It's far from perfect, and there's much to do. So that's my first wish. The second wish I have is that we are going to build a big bridge to Africa. I mean, I cannot fill the Mediterranean with sand, but I would like to do it because I think we haven't solved the problem of huge gap in standards of living and standards of education. And there's so many things that need to be done in Africa. And we have our own interest to involve ourselves in developing and helping Africa, not exploiting Africa as our ancestors have done, but no, we have to develop Africa. Look at the Chinese, they are already there. They are investing so much money and they are exploiting it in a different way. But I believe that Africa needs to be a continent with countries that are able to sustain themselves because they have knowledge, they have resources, and they have their own wits and ideas to develop the strengths of their respective countries. And that that needs a prerequisite that is democracy. So we have to help them with giving our knowledge of democracy to them. Yes, that's very important, and I would like to support all those activities of the European Union to develop our relationship with Africa. And why do I say this is our own interest? I believe it's the only way to stop uncontrolled immigration. If we don't improve the situation in Africa, the Africans will come to Europe, and we will not be able to handle this. And I see a great chance for very different and very dangerous developments for our own safety and democracy if we have uncontrolled immigration and no means to sustain all these African people coming to us. So this is in the interest of all, actually, that we improve the situation in Africa. That's my second wish. And the third wish would be that we are able to do more about right-wing people in European countries that are talking in a bad way about the European Union. And there are politicians that they use their mischief and their lacking success, and they point with their fingers to Europe and they say, it's Europe because we are bad, it's Europe. And this should have an end. And that is also a role that is a role for the media. The media must inform better about what's going on in Europe, and they should not inform about the bad things. They should inform much more about the positive things that happen every day because of the European Union.